Now, from the News Channel 5 network, this is Medical Mondays.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on News Channel 5 Plus for our Medical Mondays. I'm Casey Mason, and tonight we're talking about skin cancer awareness. And joining me this evening is Dr. Dawn Vincent. Good evening, doctor. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Casey. Thank you for having me tonight.
You know, we were talking before we came on air tonight just about how really this is really one of the most downplayed cancers, yet it's the most common.
It really is. Most people have either a family member or a loved one who's been affected by skin cancer. And if you look at all of the cancers that we are aware of, lung, colon, breast, and you lump those together, the number of skin cancers triples that. So 10,000 people in the United States are being diagnosed with a skin cancer every day.
I mean, those numbers really are alarming, and you know, that's why tonight I'm excited to learn more about this topic. I think it's one that we could really educate ourselves on, and of course, you know, tonight we are live here in the 5 Plus studio, and we want to hear from you. I mean, this is free medical advice from an expert. You can't ask anything better than that, and you really kind of get to know more about this cancer and some of the misconceptions. So we do want to hear from you. Be sure to keep our lines busy this evening. I'll get that number here for you. It's 615-737-PLUS. So be sure to call in. We'd be happy to even hear your personal stories, any questions you may have, or you know, anything you want to ask Dr. Vincent about tonight. So, well, doctor, since we have you here this evening, I want to hear a little bit about your background, kind of what led you into this line of work.
Well, it's interesting because growing up, I never thought I wanted to be a physician because I don't like school that much. So it wasn't something I had an initial interest in. But when I was in college, I developed an interest in helping people. And when I got into medical school, I definitely knew that the skin, the dermatology field is one that I would have a particular interest in, because being a fair-skinned person and coming from a generation where we laid out all the time and I had a lot of sunburns, I knew that it would be very impactful on my life personally. And being able to see all age groups of patients was really what drew me to the field.
Yeah, well, you know, and how many years would you say you've been in the field now?
This is my 19th year in practice.
Year. Any things that really, as a doctor, you've just learned that you didn't expect when you entered this field?
Dermatology is always a surprise, and probably all physicians in medicine would say the same thing, but with dermatology, every day is different because you don't know who is walking through the door and what they may have on their skin. A lot of patients come into the clinic with a preconceived notion that they have a wart on their finger, and they come in and it's not a wart. It may be a skin cancer. And the patient didn't know that, but that is the importance of being aware of changes with your skin and getting skin checks with a dermatologist. Well,
we're definitely going to talk about, you know, things to look out for, ways to prevent it. There's really things that we all could be doing to at least help the cause. I know the sun is something that we share the world with every day. It's there, whether, you know, it's always there, and it's something that, you know, you really have to be aware of. Even just, you know, in the wintertime months, it's something that I definitely want to talk more about as we get into tonight's show, some things we can all do to just really help our skin. Again, as we were talking before the show, it is our body's largest organ, and we need to take care of it.
Absolutely, no doubt.
So let's go ahead and dive into, you know, really skin cancer overview. Some of the facts that you want to share with us, you know, how exactly the cancer even occurs.
Skin cancer begins when a normal cell undergoes a transformation where the cells start dividing more rapidly, causing that normal cell to become abnormal. And when the cell becomes abnormal, it acts more aggressively and it can invade the surrounding tissues. And in some cases of skin cancer, like with melanoma cases at certain times, it can spread to other areas of the body and invade the tissues and the organs there.
You know, there obviously are those 3 million people in the U.S. that are actually diagnosed each year with some type of the disease. As a doctor, tell me some of the things that, you know, when your patient come in, how their reaction is to that. Is it something that is really surprising?
Sometimes it is surprising, like the case I mentioned before, where somebody is really thinking they have a benign lesion, and then I tell them, no, I think that lesion is suspicious. So that patient may not be prepared for what I'm going to tell them that day, but I always emphasize the fact that how wonderful it was that they made the appointment to come in, that it's great that we were able to remove this lesion, hopefully at an early stage, to prevent them from having more problems down the road.
You know, I'm just curious about this as well. You know, as a doctor, do you feel like you have a lot of patients that come in hoping to prevent, you know, skin cancer from occurring, or do they come in when it's getting to the point where it's almost too late and it has formed into
It's
melanoma?
such a great question because we see both. I think as the years have gone on, because I've been in practice now for a long time, there has been so much more awareness. We have the internet. There's so many more forms of communication. People, I think, are well aware that they should be protecting their skin. A lot of my patients, if they have young children, are very good about protecting their child from day one to help prevent that, you know, their kids from having problems down the road. So I see a lot of patients who come in and they want me to check their skin just to see if they have anything suspicious. And then I have some patients, and I would say probably older, you know, patients who come in after the fact. So they have a spot they really are a little bit suspicious of, but they may not want to know what it is, and they've kind of put off coming into the clinic. But it's why we just encourage people to come in as early as possible. I love doing preventative skin checks because I might be able to find something, a suspicious lesion, get rid of it early for someone and prevent them from having a bigger procedure down the road.
Let's kind of start from the beginning. Let's say, you know, we have some folks watching this evening. Maybe they've never been through a dermatology experience. Walk us through the steps that take place, what you can expect as soon as you enter the door.
So when someone comes in for a skin exam, so people coming in for the well skin check, that it's as simple as calling the office, making an appointment, telling the appointment desk why you want to come in, and then when patients come in, they are asked to put on a gown. Typically, they can live on their undergarments, and then I go in and just do a general inspection. You know, we try to glance from the scalp down to the feet.
Oh yeah, the scalp. I think a lot of folks don't realize that. You really do. In between toes even.
Toes, feet. A lot of people don't think that they have gotten sun exposure there, but you do. If you've ever gone swimming, I mean, you do get sun exposure, maybe not intentionally, but you do. And I've had numerous patients who were sent to me from their hairdresser who found a lesion in their scalp and sent them in to have it checked. Because it's very difficult on your own body to check your scalp, to check at your back, to look at the backs of your legs. So those are areas that I really particularly like to focus on. And even though I will tell my patients, hey, I trust you, you know, if you see something that you're worried about on your chest, that you will come in. But what if something happens in the middle of your back? Unless you have a loved one who can look at it for you, that's one of the values that we can offer as dermatologists.
You know, I do want to ask, since you just brought that up, being a dermatologist, you're out and about every day. Do you ever notice things, you know, standing in line at the grocery store, you know, even watching folks on television? If you ever, as a doctor, are you always aware of that?
You are always aware of it.
Yeah.
I do notice it a lot, and it's a difficult line because I don't want to seem nosy, you know, to a person, a stranger on a plane or something along that line. But I usually will try to bring it up in some kind of indirect conversation to maybe encourage the patient to get the spot checked without actually telling them to get the spot checked. So I think any line of work, you are more aware of your surroundings in that respect. All
right. Well, Dr. Dawn Vincent, as tonight continues to go on here on 5 Plus with our Medical Monday segment, we're going to really dive into a lot of things about skin cancer. Going to learn a lot tonight. And of course, I want to remind you, you know, feel free to call in this evening. We'd be happy to hear from you. We want to hear your questions. Again, any stories maybe you have to share, or anything, just, you know, even advice you want to share with others if you've ever been through this experience. We're going to go ahead and pause for a quick break, and we will be right back.
Whether a house is new or whether a house is 20 years old, we can go in and we can find debris in the lines. Mr. B's is about doing duct cleaning the best that we can do it, and better than anybody else in the industry. That's what I personally stand behind and guarantee. We never make a claim that we're going to help your health. That's just something we don't do. But again, I personally believe that if I put you in a cleaner environment, it's got to have a positive impact on you. And we literally cut a hole into the main trunk line. That's the main artery, just like a tree trunk. And we attach a HEPA vacuum system to it.
All right.
When we do that and turn it on, it causes a negative airflow. As that machine's sucking everything backwards, we go to each line and we'll brush it, and then we air sweep it down to the trunk line. So we've taken everything back to that negative airflow. So again, whether it's upstairs or downstairs, you saw that everything is being brushed and air swept to the trunk line, not bringing it back into your breathing atmosphere. What makes my home need an air duct cleaning? You have to make that decision. It's your environment. And so if you have black lines at the edge of your carpets, or you have any sort of dust, excess dust in your home that you're dealing with, and that's a problem for you, then you definitely would want your air ducts cleaned. But most people understand too that if they'll just look down the return, take the filter out a little bit and look down the return, they'll see all the dust that they're breathing on an everyday basis. The way we do the cleaning, most residential homes will be good for 5 to 7 years. We do recommend that you have your system serviced by a licensed contractor and also use a good filter. We've been doing this for over 17 years now. We take pride in the fact that we have an A+ rating at the Better Business Bureau. Also the fact that we don't believe that anybody's going to out-clean us. And as I've said before, people can outprice me, but they're not going to out-clean me. There's only one way, and that's the right way, and that's what we do at Mr. B's Air Duct Cleaning.
Listen.
All it took was someone who would insist that I just try.
Suddenly, everything was turned around because they judge you.
You tell them, I don't need this.
No one is going to understand.
Unless they've been through it, how can they?
Then one day you realize,
You feel so hopeless.
I need help. I need help.
You feel so hopeless.
Then one day you realize,
Unless they've been through it, how can they understand?
I don't need this.
No one's going to judge you.
suddenly everything was turned around because they insist that I just try.
All it took was someone who would just
Listen.
Seeing first, yeah.
All right, welcome back to Medical Mondays. I'm Casey Mason here joining you on News Channel 5 Plus with Dr. Dawn Vincent this evening. And Dawn, we are really learning a lot about skin cancer awareness. Now, you've been a doctor for how many years?
19.
19 years. So obviously, you know, we're going to learn a lot from having you here tonight. And I want to go ahead and take this time to encourage you. Please call in. We would love to hear any questions that you have, and even, like I said, some stories. I mean, I think we all know someone who's been affected by cancer, but also skin cancer is becoming common with, you know, the things we have nowadays, tanning beds, and, you know, we've all been to that beach trip before and not using the sunscreen that we should.
Right.
I'm guilty of that for sure. But okay, Dawn, so let's go ahead and dive into a little bit. I want to hear about the background of your practice at Bellmead Dermatology. Tell us about the history, your location, where folks can find you.
Bellmead Dermatology is located on White Bridge Road. We're in the west part of Nashville, and we have been in the building for over 20 years. I've been there for 19 years. We have 4 physicians and some mid-level practitioners, and we have an aesthetic center, so we have a fairly large practice, and we treat bread and butter general dermatology problems, but we do a bit of surgical and cosmetic dermatology as well.
All right. Well, go ahead and, you know, write down that location. You can go check them out. Dr. Dawn Vincent would be happy to see you. You know, is this something that, as the years have progressed, we've seen advancements, I'm sure, in being able to detect skin cancer and detect it early?
I mean, that is the key with skin cancer, is detecting it early, regardless of the type of skin cancer. Even the most potentially serious melanomas, if they're caught early, they have a very good cure rate. I mean, around 95%, similar to what you would get with a basal or a squamous cell.
And, you know, if you're just joining us right now on Medical Mondays, I want to go ahead and repeat this quote that we were talking about earlier into the segment tonight, that skin cancer is the most common of all human cancers. Now, that's all cancers out there. Skin cancer is the most common human cancers. And looking at the facts here, you know, Dawn and I were speaking that 3 million people in the United States are diagnosed each year with some type of the disease, skin cancer. So, you know, that's an alarming number. And I don't think it's necessarily an overlooked cancer, but we did agree it's downplayed. And I think a lot of that is with our lifestyles. I mean, I've got to admit, nothing feels better than when you get back from the beach and you have that nice summertime glow, but that glow can really cost you.
It really can, and I think that now there are so many alternatives from getting the tan, other than getting the tan through laying out or a tanning bed. I mean, we have self-tanners that we can use that have really come a long way in the past, 15, 20 years. Spray tans are very popular. I have a lot of patients who come in who have had a spray tan. It looks like they have laid out in the sun and gotten a tan.
Oh, they've come a long way.
They've come a long way. The thing about self-tanners and spray tans, specifically with spray tans, I tell patients we don't really know how safe it is to inhale the spray tan solution. So when you're in the booth, I would protect my nose and not inhale, just put a mask over my face, and then they can use like a liquid self-tanner or a tanning bronzer for the face. But generally speaking, self-tanners give a great appearance that you've had a lot of sun. They do not offer any sun protection. So people think they look tan, so they're like, oh, I might not burn in the sun, but you have to wear sunscreen in addition to the self-tanner.
Yes, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. That's true. Just because you look in the mirror and you see that, glow from a self-tanner, that's not the case. Your base skin is still under that. It's almost like a layer of polish in a way.
That's right.
Okay. Well, Dr. Vincent was kind enough to go ahead and bring us some photos tonight that we want to go ahead and show you all at home. Dr. Vincent, let's go ahead, kind of talk us through what we're seeing. I, by no means, am a medical expert, so I have no idea what I'm looking at here. Explain this to us.
So this is an example of a basal cell skin cancer. This is the most common of all skin cancers. So if you say 3 to 4 million people a year have a skin cancer, a lot of those people are having more than one skin cancer. So we have probably between 4 to 6 million cases of skin cancer a year in the United States. Basal cells account for about 4 million. I mean, it's basically, I tell people, if you've ever had sun in your lifetime, don't be surprised if you have a basal cell. They don't tend to be too worrisome, in terms of your health.
That was my next question for you.
But as you can tell, like in this person, this is a basal cell that is located between the nose at the upper part of the screen and the lip is at the lower part of the screen.
Okay.
This is a pearly edged papule or bump. You can see some redness in there. Those are blood vessels. This is a very common appearance for a basal cell skin cancer.
And now, that is obviously one that we see on a face.
Right.
Do you feel like, after we go through these photos, I want to ask you maybe some more common regions. So we'll continue on.
So this is a scalp. Say maybe this is the part of a scalp where somebody had sun exposure if they're a golfer, at the top part of the scalp. And this is another presentation a basal cell can have as a scaly, non-healing, rough patch. Most of the time they have some type of little pearly edge, but this would be a lesion. Someone would come in saying, I'm putting moisturizer on this, it's just not healing, it just stays a red, scaly, non-healing patch. And then this is another example. As you can see, the lip is on the left-hand side and the nose is on the right-hand side, and this is in that little fold between the cheek and the lip, another basal cell. It's a pearly papule. This one has a little bit of a crater in the center. So some patients will come in saying, hey, I have a pimple, on my cheek, and it just won't go away. I can't squeeze anything out of it, it just won't go away. So a lot of people, if they've never seen a basal cell before, they will try to liken it to something that they have seen before, like a pimple.
That is not something I would have known to look for.
Right.
When I think of any form of a skin cancer and and detecting, one of the first photos you showed, that's what I recognize. So I'm really glad that our viewers got the chance to see those photos tonight. Thank you for bringing those. And after seeing those, feel free to call in if you have any questions about those tonight. I'm going to go ahead and give you that number one more time, 615-737-7587. That's 737 plus. Feel free to call us in. Free advice tonight from a medical expert. All right, so after seeing those pictures, I want to know, really, where on our bodies would you say are the most common regions where skin cancer occurs, or is it all over?
It could be all over, especially nowadays when we have so many patients who are using tanning beds at the tanning salon, and they are getting full body exposure with ultraviolet light. So that has become more of a problem. Historically, it would be the common sun exposed areas: head, neck, arms, hands, Those are the most common areas. Ears.
I was actually getting ready to say, I heard from my dermatologist years ago, she reminded me when you're at the beach or out on a summer day, she reminded me to make sure that you're putting sunscreen on the tops of your ears. It's a place we forget about. What are some other places that maybe get overlooked?
Well, the scalp, as we mentioned, that we had a photo of that. The scalp is a common area to see skin cancers, and people, because they can't see their own scalps, they're just not that aware unless someone else mentions it to them.
Now, someone like me, how would a hat, I guess?
Yes.
Or, okay.
You can put sunscreen in your scalp. There are spray sunscreens you can put in your scalp. It makes your scalp a little bit, your hair a little bit greasy. But
I told you we were going to learn some things tonight. I did not know that.
But that certainly can be done.
Okay.
A hat is the easiest way because it's more of a physical blocker. It's physically blocking the sun, whereas sunscreens are more of a chemical, type of blocker. But to me, whatever gets the job done, I'm happy. I am not one of those dermatologists who tell people they cannot get in the sun. I just ask them to wear sunscreen and try to avoid any kind of sunburn. We know that even one blistering sunburn as a child can double your risk for melanoma.
Wow.
If you've had 5 sunburns in your youth, your risk of melanoma can go up by 60 or 70%.
And a lot of adults, they really go the extra mile to make sure that their children have the sunscreen on when out, especially in the summertime. But I also want to remind parents, keep an eye on yourself as well. And as we get older, we think we're more, or susceptible. We realize we still are just as much. I know child skin is obviously a little more delicate, but you also got to continue to keep an eye on yourself as well. It's great that you're, taking those preventive measures for your children, but don't neglect yourself as well. I also wanted to ask about the sunscreens available out there. What are some things, as we're walking through the aisles in the store and we're gearing up for our summertime products, that we need to keep an eye on as far as things to stay away from with sunscreens and things to really start to look for that can help?
Well, the nice thing about the regulatory system with sunscreens is that the FDA mandates that a sunscreen meets a certain sun protection factor, this SPF number that you always see on the sunscreen, the cans of sunscreen. And you want to look for at least a 15, an SPF of 15, although I prefer for people to wear an SPF of 30.
30.
And it could be a lotion or a cream, but it does need to have the number 30 on the product, along with the words broad spectrum, because that means you get protection from both UVA and UVB rays. Ultraviolet B rays are the rays that burn, cause a sunburn, but we now know that UVA rays can penetrate a little bit more deeply and can be implicated in sunspots, wrinkles, skin cancers as well. So the broad spectrum means that you're getting both UVA and UVB coverage. An SPF of 15 gives you about 92 to 93% protection from UVB rays, from the burning rays.
Okay.
And then an SPF 30 gives you about 97% protection. So people say, well, what about 100? Do I need to use an SPF of 100? That does not give you 3 times the protection of a 30.
Okay.
By the time you reach 97%, there's not a whole lot of improvement that you can expect beyond that. And the FDA soon hopefully will be regulating sunscreens a little bit more, where they really can't proclaim that they have an SPF factor greater than 50. So I don't think we'll have that question much longer.
All right. Well, we're learning a lot tonight. Again, skin cancer awareness is the topic here on Medical Monday on News Channel 5+. We'll be back with more with Dr. Vincent coming up after this quick break. I want to talk next about who is more at risk. We'll be right back.
This is a Storm 5 HD weather update. Sign up for Weather Call at newschannel5.com.
A quiet start to our work week, but hot and humid, and this will be our theme. Heat and humidity building each day. By the end of the week, our heat indices will be well into the triple digits during the hottest points of the afternoon. So plan on staying hydrated and finding some cold air and shade to take breaks in if you must be out and about for much of this work week. Overnight tonight, we've got clear skies and a little patchy fog is possible, but it won't be widespread. 70 for that overnight low. Take a look at temperatures across the southeast. This heat wave has most of us in its grip. Here's a look at current conditions right here in Nashville. 70 for the overnight low here in Nashville. Outside the city, just a touch cooler than that, upper 60s, although I wouldn't really call that cool because it will still feel quite thick for you outside. 93 for your top temperature on Tuesday. That climbs into the mid and upper 90s by Thursday and Friday. That's when the heat index will be at its highest point, well into the triple digits.
Outrage over the woman shot to death by police in her pajamas. Next Inside Edition. The latest on the shooting of the yoga instructor outside her home and the search for answers.
My mom is dead because the police officer shot her.
Then it's crumbling. It's about to slide off a cliff. So who would pay $850,000 for this home? Watch the next Inside Edition.
Tomorrow at 4:30 on News Channel 5.
John.
Hey, Mr. Bart.
You know, you called a little while ago and said you hadn't eaten.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to thank you and bring you a little food. We really appreciate you being our client. I'm glad you hired us, and you're going to be happy. Colby, it's a beautiful day here in East Nashville. And are you happy about the settlement we worked out?
Yes, sir, I am.
Here it is.
Oh, wow, man.
Your case is over. They paid the full amount, and I want to thank you for being my client. It's a pleasure.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to News Channel 5 Plus. I'm Casey Mason here for another Medical Monday where we're talking about skin cancer awareness tonight. Dr. Vincent, thank you again for joining us this evening. We've really covered a lot, and I'm even learning some things I was unaware of. So we do have some more pictures that you brought in tonight. Is that right?
Right.
Okay,
yes.
Tell us what we're going to be taking a look at.
So I believe these are going to be a couple of pictures of squamous cell skin cancers. And squamous cell skin cancer is the second most common form. So basal cells are the most common, and then squamous cells are the next most common. And squamous cells can sometimes be a bit more serious in terms of their outcome, especially if a squamous cell is located in a high-risk area like a lip.
Okay.
So they have this potential to spread, even though it's rare. So this is a typical kind of presentation where someone comes in with, again, a kind of a scaly, non-healing patch. You can see it's been bleeding a little bit on the left-hand side. Some patients will come in saying, hey, this is starting to look like a wart. They will think that they have a wart, but it actually is a skin cancer on the skin. But this person probably has been trying to moisturize and putting creams, and the lesion just will not heal.
Okay. And you said, again, this is the second most common type that we're looking at right now.
Second most common type. And here's a fairly common location on the rim of the ear.
Tops of the ears, yes.
Tops of the ears, and for men especially. We don't see this as much in women, of course, because women usually have longer hair, and men grow up with shorter hair, so they have a lot of exposure, tops of ears, and I think people sometimes forget to put sunscreen there.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is you can see it has a little bit of a notched, appearance in the skin, but again, a non-healing lesion.
All right. It's really interesting, too, to talk about the difference between men and women and who's more at risk when it comes to certain parts of their bodies. And that's something I actually wanted to touch base on was, who is more at risk? I think, obviously where we grow up, growing up, some place close to the beach, or even just your activities, you said golf earlier.
Right.
Walk us through, who are some of the folks out there maybe watching tonight that, maybe didn't realize they are at higher risk than others?
Well, I think the primary person is the common sense person. Someone with fair skin, blonde or red hair, someone who freckles very easily, someone who has light colored eyes, blue, green, hazel, any other color but brown, someone who obviously has had a history of a lot of sun, so the golfer, the swimmer, the tennis player. If you have a family member, a primary family member, a parent, a sibling, a child who has had skin cancer, you could be more prone. If you have had any kind of radiation other than sun or tanning bed, so someone who's had breast cancer and had radiation, that person could be more prone to a skin cancer. If someone is on an immunosuppressant medication, so we have patients who have had kidney transplants or lung transplants, and they're on medicines that suppress their immune system, those people can be 200 times more likely to have skin cancer because they just don't have an immune response to fight off any cells that might be transforming.
That's so interesting. I'm really glad, we're bringing this up with folks tonight. I think it's something that, we all definitely need to make sure we're taking those measures when we're out in the sun, even just on a day-to-day basis. I think the habits, I think back to my mom. She grew up, they went boating, they were part of a ski club. The lake was just a part of their lives.
That's right.
And even to this day, she says, you know, I pay for it now. There was a lot of damage done in those younger years. And that kind of brings me to my next point I wanted to talk with you about was, let's kind of go through the generation gap. I feel like over the years, we've come up with these tanning beds. That's something I definitely want to bring up tonight. I want to hear your personal opinion on tanning beds, and maybe some folks who are still out there using them, what your thoughts are.
I do not like tanning beds.
Do you remember when they first started coming around?
Yes. I mean, I grew up laying out in the sun. We really didn't have tanning beds when I was younger, but tanning beds, there's no controversy about it now. You have an increased risk for skin cancer when you visit a tanning bed. We know that 1 million people in the United States visit tanning beds every year. A third of adults have admitted that they have used a tanning bed, and a third of those adults admitted that they started before the age of 18. So it is such a strong risk factor that I've gotten to where I tell people, please use a self-tanner, do anything but a tanning bed. I have so many women, because females frequent tanning salons more so than men, but I have so many women in their 20s and 30s who come in with aggressive skin cancers, not just a basal cell, but melanomas. And most of those women have a heavy history of tanning bed use.
You know, if there's one thing about tanning beds that you want folks to know as we're here tonight, you know, just, I mean, again, this is such a great topic. I was very interested in this. You know, I mean, the sun is something that I think we've all, you know, we've all been burnt, we've all been there, and you know, our skin's something we need to take care of. And you know, it really is a downplayed cancer. And you know, learning tonight, I had no idea that this is the most common cancer. So the awareness is important, and maybe, you know, let folks know just how different the light that you're exposing your skin to in the sun versus a tanning bed is. I feel, oh, it's the same, it's the same. It's really not. It's very different.
It is different. I mean, most tanning bed equipment has both UVA and UVB rays, but a lot of you're not exactly sure what you're getting because they may have just changed bulbs. The bulbs may be older where they are not emitting such strong rays. So there are so many things about tanning beds that are just not a controlled setting. So I've had patients who get sunburned, you know, in the tanning beds, and I think people think that they have a protective tan when they go to the tanning bed so they won't get burned at the beach, and there really is no such thing as a safe tan. We don't know really what a safe dose of radiation is that's unfiltered. So that's why we always encourage people, you know, to use sunscreen, because at least you're filtering a lot of the dangerous rays that are infiltrating your skin, and people can get color through a sunscreen. So people can wear an SPF of 30 and still have a nice brown color. So it's not that they can't get a tan, but at least they're achieving it more safely.
Well said. You know, with tanning beds, on that note, I do know that I'm aware that some states, are you aware that they're really starting to come out with those regulations, especially age regulations, which I think is interesting.
So it is great. We're very happy about it, but more than half the states have enacted some kind of legislation to at least restrict minors from tanning bed use. And it's different for different states. Some states it's 14 and under, some states it's 18 and under. But a couple of years ago, the FDA tried to kind of get that ball rolling, and we're hoping that all states will follow suit.
I think we'll definitely see some changes as the years progress. We're always starting to see it. Moving on now, you know, if the damage is done, let's talk a little bit about what are some options. You know, what are some treatments that we can look into?
Well, if you come to the dermatologist and they determine that you have a suspicious lesion, okay, whether that is a basal cell or squamous cell, you will more than likely have a biopsy done at the clinic. And so that's simply where we just put medicine in the skin, we take a little scraping and send it to the laboratory for examination. And so once the dermatopathologist has looked at it under the microscope, they will render the diagnosis. And if you have been diagnosed with a basal cell or a squamous cell, then an additional treatment will be needed, and certainly an additional treatment for melanoma, which we can talk about a little bit more specifically. But depending on how early the skin cancer is, how deep the skin cancer is, kind of determines what your next step is. So if you have a basal or a squamous cell that's in a very sensitive or high risk area, like the rim of the nose or the rim of the ear or an eyelid margin, then the dermatologist may want to send you for a particular type of surgery called Mohs surgery, M-O-H-S, named after Dr. Frederick Mohs. He was a general surgeon who created the technique back in the 1930s. And basically what happens is the skin cancer is excised and looked at under the microscope while you wait. So it's a way that you can get the best cure rate with taking the least amount of tissue. It's something that they mark as they take out the lesion, and they can go back and just take little additional bits of tissue if they need to.
Now, I'll be honest, I've had that procedure done. I just had a little mole on the back of my leg, and my dermatologist, it's just a little numbing shot, was really not bad at all. And they just got rid of that little spot. It was a very, early detection. It was nothing major. And so I will say, for those of you tuning in tonight, I think one thing with, going to the doctor, we kind of don't want to realize, we don't want to hit the problem head on. I knew something was wrong. I was a little scared to hear the truth. And when I went in, it was taken care of because it was so early. And from personal experience, it was nothing. It was no different than, if you've ever, had to go to the dentist for a minor procedure, and even less than that, actually. So
I think it is less than that. And I think once someone has had it done, they will no longer fear having another biopsy done at some point down the road. And we talked about this earlier. I've had several lesions removed, excised, and so I've been through the procedure multiple times. And really, so much of it is peace of mind. So if someone is so worried about this particular skin lesion, then just come in. I can either say worry or don't worry. If we're worried, then we just go ahead and take care of the problem. So it really is a fairly easy thing to accomplish. And there's not a lot of downtime associated with, as you know, going through it. You weren't restricted from doing anything the rest of the day.
Absolutely
I tell my patients they can go about their lives. It really doesn't have a big impact on your day-to-day routine.
I got a smiley face Band-Aid and I was on my way. So, I definitely, it goes down to, just right to the basic line of we have to take care of ourselves. We need to, that's why, we have amazing doctors like you out there who know what they're doing, and as from someone with a little bit of experience.
Right.
It definitely was nothing. It was a very minor, it was basic day. So,
yes, indeed.
Now we have something really interesting when we come back from our next break that we want to talk with you all about, and that is addiction. Yes, it exists in tanning. It's something we discussed before the show, and I know Dr. Vincent has some really interesting things she wants to share with that on us. So stay tuned to News Channel 5 Plus, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Kevin Kennedy, along with my brother Bruce Kennedy, and we're lawyers at the Kennedy Law Firm. We're all the time asked, how do you get those big settlements?
Well, Kevin, the last insurance adjuster I spoke to, he said the Kennedy Law Firm just keeps coming up.
Hello, come in. Y'all call us.
If you spend any amount of time at the great outdoors, hunting or fishing, you need to watch Southern Woods and Waters on News Channel 5 Plus. Join host Hugh McNaughton and our area's top sportsmen as they share their experience and knowledge. Southern Woods and Waters is all about Middle Tennessee, and it's live. Call in with your questions. Whatever the season, that's what they're talking about. Tune in to Southern Woods and Waters Thursday night at 8, or catch the encore presentation Sunday night at 8 on News Channel 5 Plus.
Do you have allergy symptoms? Dust a lot? Have black lines at the edge of your carpet? New home construction? Visit MrBAirDuct.com for a free estimate.
It's only one way, and that's the right way, and that's the way we do it at Mr. B's Air Duct Cleaning.
I got smart about saving for college. And now my daughter's off to a great start.
When it comes to your money, whatever you want to get smart about, you can find at smartaboutmoney.org.
We got smart about loans.
And sign here. Now it's our house we're going home to.
I got smart about preparing for those challenges. Now I know at least my finances will be healthy.
Smart About Money is a free online resource. We are a non-commercial, non-profit organization dedicated to helping people just like you get information about money. For everything from how to build an emergency fund to how to deal with job uncertainty, smartaboutmoney.org has the answers you've been looking for.
I got smart about credit.
Would you like paper or plastic?
Now paper or plastic has a whole new meaning.
Smartaboutmoney.org, the easy place to start when you want to get smart about your finances.
Tuesday on Talk of the Town, great shopping in Billettsville.
We've discovered a place where you can buy so many made-in-Tennessee treats all under one roof. And it's not just food. It's your new go-to gift shop for weddings, babies, almost any occasion.
Then the queen of horsepower is here. Sherry Pheasant tells us the mistakes to avoid when looking for someone to service or repair your car.
Plus, if you have legal problems, call in for some free advice.
Judge Muriel Robinson is here for Open Phones Tuesday at 11 on Talk of the Town.
Continuing to follow breaking news.
Breaking news that matters to you.
Traffic is backed up.
Can come from anywhere.
Protesters have been
at any time.
Showers expected.
See it as it happens.
Rolled over school bus.
Live streaming at News Channel 5 is sponsored by Universal Kia.
You know, Kevin, it's been said that one extraordinary man can do more than 10 ordinary men.
And I believe that, you know, the truth is at the Kennedy Law Firm, we have a team full of extraordinary people. Call us today, 931-645-9900.
Well, welcome back to Medical Mondays here on News Channel 5 Plus. I'm Casey Mason, and joining us all tonight during this segment is Dr. Vincent. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
We really talked about a lot of topics. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about skin cancer awareness, and you know, again, I've already mentioned this a few times throughout the show, but skin cancer is the most common of all human cancers, and that's just really, it strikes me. I did not know that before tonight. I knew we'd learn something.
Yes.
All right, well, we are going to go ahead to our phone lines. We have a caller in tonight. His name is Carl. Carl, thanks so much for joining us. He's going to tell us his tanning bed testimony, as I like to call it. So, Carl, you're on air tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
We can hear you just fine, Carl. We appreciate it. So, you know, when you called in, you do have a few things you want to share with us about tonight.
Yeah, I got hooked. Y'all talked about the addiction. I kind of got hooked on the tanning bed there a couple days a week back in the 90s, and it just progressed. And I never thought it was a big deal, you know. I'm looking all crispy all the time, and it ended up being one of the worst things I could ever have done. A spot popped up on my groinal area. Going into details, but you know, it kind of spread, and I ended up losing a testicle.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. I mean, you know, too, do you feel like calling in tonight, you can help other folks realize, you know, just how strong would you say the addiction was to tanning?
Well, I feel bad when I didn't go. You know what I'm saying?
And, you know, tell me when you realized you needed to go seek help.
Well, I didn't think it was any big deal there for a while. It was just a spot. And then when it grew into a lump, you know, it was already too big.
Yeah. Well, you know, Carl, we do appreciate you calling in tonight. And of course, you know, reaching out to others this evening, we want to hear from you. And also, you know, that right there is a good example of an experience and a story. And, you know, I'm sure there's several folks that are watching tonight that have questions, you know, speaking with someone like Carl. I mean, it's kind of leading us into a segment we're going to approach here in just a little while, and that is tanning bed addiction, or even just sun addiction. I mean, it really feels great to have a tan, but in the grand scheme of things, it is not worth it, and we'll get into that in a moment. But right now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that third type of skin cancer, and that, of course, is melanoma. I think everyone's familiar with this, and this is the one to look out for.
So this is an example of a normal mole, okay? So this is before we get into the discussion about melanoma. This is the type of mole that we want to see. It has an even border. It has an even color throughout. And there's not anything about that that stands out as being a bit atypical. But if you move on to the next photo, there we have several pictures of actual melanoma skin cancers. Oh, here's the ABCDs.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love to talk to people about the ABCDs and E's of melanoma, because we talk about this so many times in my clinic on a daily basis. A stands for asymmetry. Okay, so that means if you were to divide your mole in half and one half does not look like the other half, it's asymmetrical, and that tends to be a little bit of a warning sign. B is for border. We always like to see a mole that has a very even border, like the mole we just saw. It does not have a jagged edge or a hazy edge, so if your mole is irregular, we don't like that. C is for color. We like moles to be very even in their color, like an even color of light brown or an even color of medium brown. We don't like various colors like brown and blue and red and in the same lesion. D is for diameter. If you have a large mole that's bigger than the size of a pencil eraser, that can be a little bit of a warning sign. However, I have seen many skin cancers that are smaller than that, so that you have to take that a little bit with a grain of salt. But E to me is the most important of the A, B, C, Ds, and E's, and that's evolution. If someone comes to my clinic and they have had a mole that they've had for 20 years that has always looked the same, and all of a sudden it starts changing colors, changing shapes, starts bleeding, starts itching, just something changes, that is a mole I want to see in the clinic. And it does not necessarily mean it's skin cancer, but it's just something that needs to be checked.
Yeah, again, I think it's important to note. It doesn't always mean that something is wrong. It's just good to have it looked at.
Absolutely.
In our next picture here, what are we seeing there?
So here we're getting into the melanoma picture, and you can see with this mole, is the border round and even? No. It's a little bit irregular. Is the color the same color all the way through? No. This mole has two colors, and you can see by the measurement it's 1 centimeter, which is half an inch, and that's bigger than a pencil eraser. So that lesion already meets 3 of those criteria, and so that lesion needs to be biopsied, and it was indeed a melanoma.
Yeah, it's so great. I mean, the things you're sharing with us tonight, this is free medical advice, and we're learning, I'm learning a lot. I know our viewers at home are, and I really think that these pictures are important to show because, it's all different things to look at, you know? So, and what are we seeing here now?
And so this is another example of a melanoma where you have a very uneven edge. It's not exactly round or oval, and you can even tell by looking at the picture that the texture is uneven. It looks like it has a pebbly texture to the surface.
Yeah, and like you said too, I think everybody has freckles, everybody has a little mole here and there. If you notice that change in something that is, that's when you know what you're looking for.
Here's another example where you can see in the center of this mole, it's a little hazy with the color a little gray. So the color is not even all the way through, and the border is irregular. So if someone had 50 freckles that all look the same and 1 lesion that looked like this, it would stand out. So you're always looking for lesions that don't fit into the picture for that particular person. Something that stands out, a lesion that does not look like their other lesions.
Now, and then the bottom of the foot.
That's a heel.
Wow, I would not expect that.
Right, and to our point earlier, where people say, oh, I've never had sun on my feet, I say you have if you've gone swimming, if you've laid out. I mean, there are situations where you get sun on your feet, and
I'm a flip-flop wearer, and I think that's one right there.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And the problem here is that this person may have never turned their foot over and looked at the bottom of their foot.
Wow.
So that's another reason, to get a skin check, is because there's somebody reminding you, hey, look at the bottom of your feet.
And now I have to ask, I mean, that picture's, it's really, it's something to see. And I mean, as a doctor, when you do see that, what goes through your mind?
Well, I'm not ever happy to see it, because I'm never happy to deliver that news to the patient of what I think they have. But that is a person, if they walked in the door, that we would immediately do a procedure that day. Like I would say, I would not feel comfortable with them leaving the clinic with that on the heel.
And how severe would that procedure be?
It's a difficult location, being on the heel, but you would have to numb the area, and we would actually excise that, cut that lesion out so that the lab could look at the entire lesion.
And looking at that and hearing what you just said, I think that's just another great example of why it's important to, just keep an eye on things. And, if you've never seen a dermatologist, now's a great time to start thinking about it. That's what I did a couple years ago. I didn't really have anything particular that I was going in for. I just wanted to get a checkup. It's no different than going to the dentist or the doctor.
That's right. It's a preventative measure. And I think, since half of melanomas develop from an existing mole that changes, it's very important to have those moles looked at on a regular basis, and half of moles will pop up brand new. So this is an example of a melanoma that from a color standpoint is not so ominous looking. It's not black, but you can see how irregular it is. For reference, on the top right hand side there is a regular mole, and then the lesion in the center of the screen is the melanoma. Probably an early one in its development. It could be that this person had come in and the lesion used to be round and even, but they've noticed that it started kind of seeping out on one side and having a jagged edge, so that's no longer round in its shape.
Okay. Yeah, and any other photos we have? I think that was the end of our photos, but those are so important to share, and it really proves that they come in all different shapes and sizes and different, there's a really lot of things that you're looking out for, but that's again where if you go see an expert, they can really, pinpoint what is a problem area and what isn't. So now this is the part that I've really been interested to talk to you about personally, and that is addiction to tanning. And this is a thing that really exists. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I mean, it's hard to believe. I mean, really, I think you can get addicted to anything. It's, that's true. But when it comes to tanning, how would people become addicted to this?
Well, it has been studied. There truly is a tanning addiction, and I think Carl alluded to it, and I appreciate the phone call because that kind of brings the awareness to the forefront. Certainly, as you mentioned before, there can be addiction to sun in general, that people, like you said, it feels so good. And I was raised in a generation where the tan was the most important thing in your life, to get as dark as you possibly could. And so that was a problem in and of itself. The tanning beds have taken that a step further. I just have a lot of patients who come into my clinic and we do a skin check, and they may actually have a skin cancer, and then we remove the skin cancer and they go back to the tanning bed. Wow. They just cannot seem to give it up. They want that dark color to the skin. They don't really tend to see the changes that everyone else sees, the leathery appearance and that type of thing. They just see that their skin is tan, and they always want to have that tan. I mean, it's no different than an addiction to cigarettes, alcohol. Absolutely. And I think there's a belief that no, tanning addiction, but it really, from a doctor's standpoint, it is a true thing. I mean, it definitely exists. And so, I mean, we bring that up, but then what can folks do? What are some options if you know someone that maybe really is abusing the sun? Well, from personal experience, I've had several patients. We try to make that transition, away from the tanning bed, and it might not be something that they can stop from one day to the next. I can counsel them to kind of, okay, could you, instead of going 3 times a week, can you go once a week, and then try to start using self-tanners so that you still have the color, because a lot of people, the color of their skin is what the important thing is to them. So it's more of this mindset, the change of the mindset to get them away from doing, and it certainly can. For some people, unfortunately, they have to get a skin cancer before they wake up, and really realize that that is causing that significant amount of damage to their skin. And unfortunately, some people have to kind of go through that to get there. And even unfortunately, some people still continue on. I mean, it is an addiction, just like we said. I mean, I think it's important to note that can occur. And that kind of brings me back to, as we're kind of wrapping tonight, I do want to go back into just really going over again what it's like to visit a doctor. Recap for us that experience, and let folks know, say they know someone that maybe needs to see a dermatologist, what the steps are and what that office visit is really like. Well, some patients, they are coming into the clinic because a family member or a friend told them to come into the clinic, so it may not be of their own accord, but someone suggested that they come in because they had a spot on their back and the person didn't know they did. So it's as simple as making a phone call to the office, scheduling an appointment, coming in. We ask patients to put on a gown. We just do a simple skin check. It's not a difficult process at all. It is not intimidating at all. And if patients have specific questions, they can ask. There are instruments that can be helpful in determining if a lesion is suspicious. There are handheld magnifying glasses called dermatoscopes. There are things like that that can help. But for the most part, if someone has something that's suspicious, we would probably go ahead and do a treatment in the office. And there are lesions that maybe have not yet become skin cancer but are pre-cancerous lesions, which tend to look similar to some of the pictures that we saw as far as being little rough scaly patches. From my personal experience, the first one I ever had was on my cheek, and I thought I just had a piece of dry skin, and I scratched it off and it went away, and then 2 weeks later it was back and I scratched it off, and after 3 or 4 recurrences I realized that, okay, that is a precancerous lesion. Those cells are dividing too rapidly. And so that lesion I treated with liquid nitrogen. nitrogen, which is a freezing technique. So not everything has to be addressed surgically. So sometimes if patients come in and we catch things early, we can do non-surgical treatments like freezing or creams. There are certain creams or laser treatments. So there are lots of other options that are not quite as intimidating to the patient.
Yes, or intrusive, especially when you're dealing with your face. You know, I think that's a region that a lot of folks are kind of worried about. You know, it is right on your face. You do worry about that. So that's good to know that there's other options that aren't quite as intrusive. So it still takes care of the situation. So again, we have Dr. Dawn Vincent of Bellmead Dermatology joining us tonight. Now we have a few more minutes left in our segment tonight, but we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we're going to wrap things up tonight. So we'll be right back.
This is a Storm 5 HD weather update. Sign up for Weather Call at newschannel5.com.
A quiet start to our work week, but hot and humid, and this will be our theme. Heat and humidity building each day. By the end of the week, our heat indices will be well into the triple digits during the hottest points of the afternoon. So plan on staying hydrated and finding some cold air and shade to take breaks in if you must be out and about for much of this work week. Overnight tonight, we've got clear skies and a little patchy fog is possible, but it won't be widespread. 70 for that overnight low. Take a look at temperatures across the southeast. This heat wave has most of us in its grip. Here's a look at current conditions right here in Nashville. 70 for the overnight low here in Nashville. Outside the city, just a touch cooler than that, upper 60s, although I wouldn't really call that cool because it will still feel quite thick for you outside. 93 for your top temperature on Tuesday. That climbs into the mid and upper 90s by Thursday and Friday. That's when the heat index will be at its highest point, well into the triple digits.
Well, I promised him I wouldn't scare him again because we scare him every single time.
Go on. Next, Ellen. Eric Stone Street and Ellen's favorite redhead.
What's your new hobby? Karate. We'll fight you. We'll both take you on. Oh, not right now.
Not right now. Plus, an inspiring soldier.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything.
And all new ways to win.
Tomorrow at 3 on News Channel 5. Nearly 70 small businesses have been sued for not being wheelchair accessible.
To me, this is just a shakedown.
The lawsuits have cost owners thousands of dollars.
What they're doing is just making money off me just going to these stores.
But the plaintiff in dozens of the lawsuits says suing was never his idea.
Some of the places I went in, I didn't see anything wrong.
News Channel 5's Ben Hall investigates if a law firm hired a man in a wheelchair to sue businesses.
Do you feel bad about going in and doing this?
Yes.
Tonight on News Channel 5 at 10.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up tonight here on our Medical Mondays on News Channel 5 Plus. You know, we've learned a lot tonight about skin cancer awareness. We appreciate you joining us tonight. As we leave, folks, real quick, what are some final things you want to say?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about skin cancer. I think it's so important. But for me, the top 3 things I would recommend for people to wear sunscreen every day of the year, be skin aware. Be aware of your lesions and have a skin check once a year.
All right. Well, again, Dr. Dawn Vincent joining us tonight of Bellmead Dermatology. And now we're going to go ahead and share some information with you. We want you to know that you can email appointment requests to medicalmondays@ouradvancedhealth.com, Advanced Health Referral Line. The number's right there on your screen. And, of course, more information, feel free to reach out. Dermatologists like Dawn would be happy to see you. Well, Dawn, again, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We've got Sportsline coming up next. Thanks so much for joining us.